Share this video with somebody who's looking to rent a home in California. So there was a new assembly bill that was passed in January 1st, 2025 that had major implications for how landlords are to accept tenants on their properties. And prior to this new bill being introduced, which is Assembly Bill 2493, was signed into law and is effective starting in the beginning of 2025. This is what typically happened for a rental property. So if I was a landlord, people would maybe apply for my home. I would get 3 or 4 applications. I'd review them and make my best judgment about who I want to potentially accept. And I didn't really have to tell them why I didn't accept someone. So if I didn't accept someone, I didn't have to actually give them a reason for it. And I certainly didn't incur any costs for having to deny them. Starting in 2025, so last year, moving forward, there's 2 major changes. One, landlords have to publish their criteria for their ideal tenant in advance. So before somebody applies, I have to give them my criteria, which I'll explain some example criteria in a minute. And number 2, if I reject them and they meet my criteria, I am supposed to refund them their application fee. So technically, I am supposed to accept on a first come, first served basis the first person who meets my criteria. So what does that mean? I get tenant A applies Monday at 10 a.m., tenant B applies Monday at 11 a.m., and tenant C applies at 12 p.m. on Monday. And tenant A meets my criteria for my ideal tenant. I then have to accept them in a first come, first served basis. And if I don't, I have to refund them their application fee. So that is very, very important. Application fees, typically, if you're in Southern California and you're applying for a lease, you're going to use a system called Rent Spree. That's going to run, for the tenant side, that's going to run your credit, that's going to run your background check, and it's going to have you fill out an application. Could be between $30 and $50. So if the landlord does not accept you and you met the criteria, you can technically request that money be paid back to you. So that is really, really important. So what is some common criteria landlords are using? Well, it kind of was a gray area last year on what that looked like, but it is starting to come into a little bit of more clarity. Here's the most common ones that I see. Of course, there's additional, but these are the most common ones I see. Income. I'm seeing a lot of landlords require that you have 2.5 times the month's rent for your income. So you rent a certain amount, you make 2.5 times that. If you're self-employed, they're going to want to look at your tax returns for the last 2 years. They're going to want to average that to give a monthly income, and they're going to want to make sure you make 2.5 times the month's rent. So that is the first thing, is an income criteria. Second thing is credit. I'm seeing probably the most important one, actually. I'm seeing a lot of 700 credit score or better, or if you go into areas like Irvine where they're very strict, I'm seeing 720, 750. They're really wanting really good credit. So they're wanting to make sure that each applicant over the age of 18 has good credit or above a certain amount. So that is it. And then the third thing is the reserves. I'm seeing a lot of people say, I want to see at least 3 months of reserves. This is a tripping point, for many tenants, because unfortunately, not a lot of people are good at saving money. Not a lot of people are good at living below their means. So I'm getting a lot of applications on homes that I'm helping my landlords, rent out, and they have great income and they've got great credit, but they have the fancy new Suburban, they've got the fancy new Cadillac, and all their money is going toward their things, and they have no money in savings. And so they're literally missing out on the perfect home for their family because they don't have any money saved. So that is a big one. If you are going to rent a home out moving forward, really try to have 3 months reserves, 2 to 3 months reserves in your bank account. So there's a lot more criteria there. I went over the top 3, but in summary, this is what the change is. Landlords have to publish their criteria. They're supposed to accept people on a first come, first served basis that meets the criteria. If they don't, they're supposed to refund your application fee. And 4, you really want to make sure as a tenant that you are doing your best to meet that criteria. So work on your credit score, pay off your debts. Right now, it's a very competitive rental market. Prices are high. This is what you got to do if you really want your family to get the ideal home for you. So think about that. You're going to be living somewhere for a year or two. It's better to make some sacrifices live on less, maybe don't have the fancy, fancy brand new car for a season, but you get the better home. So that's just that's not what you have to do, but that's just maybe overall just advice if you really value that bigger home, right, or that nicer home. Hope this video was helpful for you. Comment below if you have any questions. If there's any topics you'd like some follow-up elaboration on, comment below as well. My name is Stephen Hurd, realtor here in Orange County, California, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.